All right. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Sophisticated Man podcast. I have another guest on here today. You might have recognized him from previous podcasts that we've done together, Mr. Gene. What's happening, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. How's life been?
Absolutely. It's been interesting the last few months, especially the tail end of the year there. There was a lot going on just personally with like my surgery and then with business. But
Mm.
things are getting back into normal now, getting back into a good flow. How about yourself, man? How's everything on your end?
Yeah, good, man. Good. Man, I didn't know you had a fucking surgery. You didn't mention that.
Yeah, yeah, it was brutal. It was pretty brutal.
Yeah, but it's okay now. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, I've been cleared to like go walk, and my brace has been removed for a few months now, so I don't have to deal with crutches or anything like that. So it's a lot better, but still got some ways to go until I get my full strength back.
Mm. She did. Speedy
Yeah,
recovery, man. I'm glad
appreciate
everything's
it.
okay now, or like better.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I
Awesome,
appreciate
man.
that. Um, I know I know a lot about your content, obviously, because we've done collabs before. I've followed you, so I've seen kind of what you talk about. For people that are watching that might not know a little bit about you, what you do, if you wanted to briefly kind of explain, what you talk about, what you're, just
Mm.
essentially kind of what you're all about.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. I'm going to try to keep it brief because I love to talk. Love hearing myself. So what I do is essentially I help men attract and retain, keep high quality women around. So I think the
Mm,
biggest things that I've seen in the market, not market, but like out there, right? Like with guys is either they are like incapable of attracting good women, feminine women, especially nowadays. And if they are capable of doing so, they really suck at keeping them around. And
mm,
like most of the things, most of the reasons why they sort of suck at keeping them around is actually all the insecurities that come up once you meet that one woman, that one woman that you actually love and care about, which is often related to childhood trauma, deeper emotional hooks from
mm,
the past, yada, 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 yada. And so the way I see myself is I see myself a bit of as a mind doctor. So like, yes, I focus on dating. Yes, I focus on self-improvement, but there's a lot of psychology behind it. So my work is I actually, shit, man, I should have thought about that. What I bring together is
mm.
masculinity and seduction, essentially. I combine those
Yeah.
and sprinkle in psychology from Freud, Carl Jung, and co. Some spiritual side things, spiritual elements as well, and that's sort
hmm
of for me, seeing my clients' results is sort of the perfect mix.
Mm. I like it, man. I like it. And a lot of what you just described is very similar to my approach too. Like
Mm,
it's very psychological based, but it's also like based on experience. It's based on uh getting deep into the root because I believe like as you said, as far as attraction goes, as far as like attracting better quality women, you have to become first a better quality guy and you have to understand your
mm,
insecurities, your things that are going on, some shadow work as they call it in the
yeah,
spiritual community. All that is like super necessary before you can really go out there externally and find a good woman. So I'd love for you to maybe like speak on that just for a second. Like when you talk about guys really getting in tune with themselves, what do you think the biggest resistance guys have, or maybe why haven't they done that work beforehand? What do you think like the
mm.
barrier is for that?
I think for a lot of guys, I think the most fragile thing on the planet is a man's ego, and a
Mm,
lot of guys are so afraid to sort of face their own demons, which is
yeah.
essentially just a nicer or more dramatic word for their emotions and feelings.
hmm
And this is sort of what I observe. Do I blame? I mean, I like to give my guys tough love. I like to hold men accountable. I
Yeah.
think men, we are, as Tate and Co already said, like we carry the burden of accountability or whatever he calls it. Um, but I think also men have sort of never been truly initiated into how to deal with your own shit, you know, like emotions
Yeah.
and feelings and feeling them really, like not running away from them and feeling the intensity of those emotions and feelings. And
Hmm.
I believe that has given a lot of men a massive disadvantage nowadays. And it's the biggest issue. I think a lot of men self sabotaging because they're running away from their emotions. That's sort of the reason, right, in my point of view.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I think a lot of the issues that men face with relationships is because they don't know how to understand themselves. And
Mm,
I think you've made posts about this too. Is like when you can really ground yourself in your own emotions as a man. Like I can understand, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling hopeful,
mm,
whatever you're feeling. Then you can start to navigate a woman's emotions more. Like when you become a safe space, you allow the woman to kind of be more feminine and just be in her emotions so you don't have to be in your emotions essentially. So I totally agree. I think that's kind of the work I'm doing now, just personally. A lot of just
mm.
like understanding of myself, understanding of what is like insecure inside of me, what is holding me back in a lot of ways. It's like a never ending thing, as I'm sure you know. Uh, I do think that guys tend to do the lone wolf route where they're like, yeah, I don't
Mm.
really need help. I'm just going to do me. I don't need support. I don't need a coach. And I think anytime someone says that, it's clearly a cope because they need it the most. Like if someone like Michael Jordan, who was the greatest athlete of all time, arguably, if he had coaches, he had trainers. Tom Brady had
Yeah.
trainers. Like Kobe Bryant had coaches. Tiger Woods had coaches.
Mm.
These guys that are like elite performers, if they have people that they can rely on to train them, support them, coach them, well, for you to say that you don't need anybody, like the amount of arrogance that you have to say that it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, right. It's crazy, right? It's one of the biggest scopes, right? And
Yeah.
as you said, and yeah, like I think when it comes, I mean, okay, this is going to sound judgmental, right? But like, I have less respect for the guys who know that something's wrong with them, but they refuse to work on it, compared to the guys who don't even fucking know that there's something wrong with them.
Hmm.
Um, but they don't have excuses because they have less excuses, right? Or more excuses actually,
Hmm.
because they are not aware yet, compared to the guys who know that something's wrong, but they're like, oh no, my ego is too big. I can figure this out myself, you know. And yeah,
Hmm.
like they piss me off the most because they're the most dangerous, I think, out there.
Hmm. Yeah, they are. I mean, it's uh it's interesting the statistics that exist when it comes to men's like mental health, where obviously like suicide rates are double basically in men than in women,
Mm,
and just the fact that there's a lot of uh a lot of discrepancies of like men that are very emotional and the crimes that are essentially committed from that. Like I think most of the crimes that you see that are happening in today's world, obviously most of them are committed by men, but it's not just any average guy. It's a dude that clearly he has emotional trauma, emotional issues. He hasn't dealt with these things in his life. Whether that's upbringing, whether that's something that happened to him at a young age, he just never fully got got healed from that moment. Um, so I do think that that is incredibly important for men to know this and to like understand this even while they're young, because if you don't deal with it, like you kind of see the consequences of men that are just they're traumatized and they go into the world and they maybe screw up a relationship, they screw up
mm,
their work environments, they screw up, I mean, just society in general. Like they become into positions of power and they just fuck everything up. So I do think it is important for men to like understand their emotions, get clear with their emotions, but not to be ruled by their emotions, basically.
yeah, 100%. It's crazy to think, right? Like there's so many positives, right? Working through your emotions or working with your
Hmm.
emotions and becoming a master of your emotions. But I'm
Yeah,
not
facts.
sure, like, why so many men are. I think there's this negative stigma, right, around emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's because of the red pill saying like you have to be like, maybe that is sort of where the red pill went into the extreme of saying like you have to be, they turned so many men into emotionless like human beings
Yeah.
because of the fear of being hurt. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's quite the opposite, right? You will still get hurt. You just push it
Mm-hmm.
down. Like,
Yeah.
if someone, like if she leaves you, if she cheats on you, yada yada yada, you still feel the pain, bro. You just push it
Mm-hmm.
down rather than like, hey, I'm actually gonna be capable of dealing with the pain, and then don't prolong it, don't prolong the suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's crazy, man, how this stigma that I think the red pill and so many other whatever pills there are have created around emotions.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a big part of it. Like you hear guys say, never be vulnerable around your girl, never cry in front of your girl, never do these things. And there is an element of truth to that. Like you obviously don't want to be a crybaby and like every time something happens, you're
Yeah.
losing your shit and you can't handle your emotions and you come to your girl thinking she's your therapist and you're gonna unload all this stuff on her. Like you don't want to do that. But you also don't want to be so reserved that she has absolutely no idea that you're a human being. She just sees you as like a robot. Like you do want to open up a
Yeah.
little bit. Um, there's this clip going around right now that Shaquille O'Neal actually was talking about this. He said, never be vulnerable to your woman. He said that she'll just use it against you eventually. And
Mm.
and a lot of guys like in the comments are like, yeah, dude, like I told you, don't open up to your girl. Like I told you, like, and they're using Shaq as an example, but it's like, man, like you gotta look at the outcome of that. Like, what did Shaq did he have good relationships? No, he was married twice. He's divorced. You know what I mean? Like he's been through some stuff, and he's been open about that. He said he's had failed relationships, and he he pushed away good women from his life. He's actually said that. So it's just funny that some guys are taking advice, like you said, from dudes in the red pill or some of these celebrities, when in reality is like, do they even have healthy relationships? Like look at the person saying it. Look at the messenger. Are they actually living proof of what they're saying?
Yeah, man, it's like Kim Kardashian or whatever selling her fitness
Yeah.
program. It's like, bro, like
Yeah.
it's like,
Yep.
oh, that was a off topic, off topic. Yeah, but you're
It's
right. Like
true.
it's crazy. Like sorry for cutting you off, but it's
Mhm.
crazy. Like how these big like influencers have the platform to make actually a
Mhm.
like decent dent in the universe, and then they just like fuck it up. It's like, I get like to some extent, as you said, like don't be like this simp, right?
Right.
But like people, for some reason, we're always told we only live in a black and white world, right? It's like
Mhm.
be either be a simp or be a fucking robot. But like anything, nature always says, or like nature always shows that extremes never work. There's always this, I think it's called
Mhm.
homeostasis, like we or like yeah, like there has to be like balance in life, you
Yep.
know. And
Mhm.
the extremes always, they're not sustainable. They mess you up. And yeah, I mean
Mhm.
Shaquille and Will Smith is another example. You have Shaquille O'Neal,
Yeah,
not
exactly.
Shaquille. Man, I'm European. I'm so good with basketball. So I butchered the name. I think Shaquille O'Neal, right? You've got
Yep.
Will
Yep.
Smith on the other side of the spectrum. The absolute,
Mhm.
he turned into a
Yep.
meme, bro.
Yep. Mhm. I'm actually glad you said that because that's a great example. Because like we have one side is like Shaq, who is saying more of kind of like the red pill advice of like don't ever open up, don't ever be vulnerable, and then you have Will Smith, who's more of the simp category. Like he's too much to his girl. He's telling her too much, and she's essentially like leading that relationship. If you even want to call that a relationship, but
Yeah, I'm glad
you
you
know,
said that.
yeah, it's that whole toxic situation is that's a whole other we could spend a whole podcast on that alone probably. But
Yeah.
yeah, like there is this discrepancy of you're either here or here, and it's like, man, there's a lot of truth in the middle, don't you think? Like there's a lot of ways to be a grounded, stoic, masculine guy, but also be emotionally intelligent and know how to communicate with your girl. You can have both. You don't need to be one or the other. And I think it's always funny that you say the word vulnerable, and the first thing that guys think of is that image of them like in the corner crying, going to their girl, like they're just got tears coming down their
Mm,
face. And it's like, I don't think people really understand what the word vulnerable even means. Like vulnerability to me, well, not even to me, but just like the dictionary version of vulnerability is just free expression. That's all it is. I'm just expressing freely, and whatever happens, happens. Like if I walk up to a girl and I said, "Hey, I think you're really beautiful. I'd like to get to know you. What's your name?" She could reject me. She could she could like me and get my phone number or whatever, but that's me being vulnerable in that moment. I'm putting myself out there, and I
mm,
could get hurt.
mm,
I could get judged. I could get, you know, a drink thrown in my face. I don't know what could happen, but I'm vulnerable in that position. So it's not just you're crying and being emotional. Like vulnerability is just being okay with showing yourself. That's what I think.
mm. Man, I had to. I took a note now because I think what you said is just it's almost like a breakthrough. I mean, at least for me, and I hope for a lot of guys who will
Hmm.
listen to this as well. Because, and I hope it's gonna it makes sense in my head. So I'm gonna try to make sense for everyone who's listening. Like you said, vulnerability is free expression of yourself.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, but you can only express yourself freely if you master your emotions. If you're good at regulating your emotions.
Yeah.
And that's when you can only be your authentic self. And that's what's the
Hmm.
ultimate attraction cheat code for high quality
Yep.
women. So I think a lot of guys, when they hear vulnerability, as you said, they have this fear, anxiety of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so weak. Yes,
Hmm.
if you are incapable of regulating your emotions, then you actually cannot be vulnerable because you do not express yourself freely because you do not have control. So you're not
Hmm.
free.
Yep.
That's some mental gymnastics. I hope it makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense to me, and because I've done this work on myself, and like I understand because I had the same problem. Was for the longest time I'd think vulnerability was it was a weakness. It was like being a crybaby, being in the corner, sulking all the time. I used to think
Mm,
that too, and it wasn't until I started doing this work on myself and realizing that, damn, understanding my traumas, understanding my past, understanding my own emotions and like what's going on, then I was able to really be vulnerable because there was times where I would say something, and I had this girl actually give me like direct feedback not too long ago. I remember when I first met her, I started talking. She was like, "Yeah, like I heard what you were saying, but," she said, "I just got a sense that you weren't being like," she
mm,
basically said I wasn't safe or I wasn't like real or vulnerable in that moment. I was like, "Really?" I was like, "That's interesting." But then, fast forward a couple weeks, we are doing this work, and I was going through these workshops, and we talked again, and then she's like, "Yeah, like now I'm so much more connected with you because you're
mm,
speaking vulnerably. You're not being like you don't have a wall up or anything." And I was like, that's so wild to me because I don't in the moment I'm not thinking, yeah, I'm holding back or I'm uncalibrated, but apparently to her, and women are a
mm,
lot more emotional, so they sense these things. She picked up on that. So it's
mm.
just wild that you're always kind of showing either full authenticity or vulnerability, or you have some kind of mask, some kind of thing that's preventing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a crazy experience. And yeah, it just goes to show. It's funny you mention it now because at the beginning, I had the thought that I wanted to drop, which is along those lines, which is
Hmm.
like a lot of men want high quality women. They want the eights, the nines, the tens. And even though I think some of the tens that a lot of guys think are 10 are actually maybe physically, but the rest is definitely not a 10
Yeah.
personality wise. But anyways, but when it comes to my definition of a high quality woman, it's like physically very attractive, but also her soul is there. There's a soul
Hmm.
inside.
Yep.
And if you want to attract that high quality woman, bro, you need to be able to create an emotional connection. If you cannot create an emotional connection,
Hmm.
she's not going to be attracted to you. How do
Hmm.
you create an emotional connection? Because yeah, you have to fucking know your own emotions first. You have to know yourself
Yeah.
first. And there's this concept that I call it women are your mirror. They reflect who you truly are,
Mm,
and it's just beautiful to. I think that is the one, if not the best element of having a feminine woman by your side, which is, bro, she's gonna reflect all the fucking insecurities and weaknesses inside of you, like that you didn't even know existed, you know. And
mm,
that's the beauty of the feminine. They have this special gift, and they can literally feel if you're bullshitting them or when you're bullshitting them.
mm-hmm.
And there was one more thing I wanted to say. Yeah, the thing is, again, coming back to the point, a lot of guys want high quality women, but they always forget that women are like, I always say they're feelers, not thinkers. I'm not saying that women can't think, but in romantic context, I mean, some women clearly can't. But
Yeah, they can.
let's put it.
Some can't.
I mean, they're limited in their cognitive capabilities. Let's put it that way. But
Mm,
some are, they're also men. But anyways, so women are feelers, which means their language are emotions. So if you're incapable of connecting to your own emotions, she will not hear you. So
mm.
you will not be able again to, even if you manage to attract her miraculously by some miracle, you will not be able to retain or keep her because she's gonna see through the facade.
Hmm. That right there, I think, is the key to, like you said, maintaining that girl long term. Because I mean, anybody can attract a woman. Like that's not the. There's certain skill sets that you need, like body language, confidence, knowing how to like hold a frame. Essentially, that's not essentially like hard things to do. It's a little difficult if you've never done it, but once you learn how to like attract, you're like, dang, this is pretty easy. But to maintain a girl and keep her attracted, like, if you're married 10 years or you've been together for such a long time, to keep her level of investment and her level of desire and respect for you, that is a real big challenge. And it's like a whole different skill set, one that isn't really taught. I think in especially the content space, you see everybody talking about attraction, 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 and like pickup stuff. They don't talk about, okay, once you get her, then what? Like, how do you
Mm.
keep her? Because that I think is more challenging than initially picking her up.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Because, and it comes back down to, yes, some of your insecurities will come up in cold
Mm-hmm.
approach, blah blah blah, attracting a woman, but only surface level insecurities.
Yeah.
But the true shit is gonna be revealed like throughout the relationship.
Mm.
And I think that there's this wild pattern. I had like a few guys who joined my. I want to share that because I think it's really funny. Uh, I mean, not really funny. Funny is the wrong word. Let's put it that way. But I had a few guys join my group, and when I went through like the call with on the call, I asked them, hey, like, have you been together for 2 years, roughly, give or take? Have you been together for 6 months or 2 years? And they were like, it was like, man, what do you mean? Why are you asking me this specific time? Like, I was with her for 2 years and then she broke up. I was like, yeah, there's this pattern I see in a lot of men. Either they get broken up with after 6 months or 2 years. Something's happened. I don't know what
Mm.
it is, but there's something happening. For some reason, I guess it's like, after 7 years, there's like most marriages fail, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this pattern, and I think after 6 months, the first insecurities come shine really through because I think that's when the honeymoon period ends,
Mm.
and
Yep.
then after 2 years, the deep shit is gonna come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really, like when you become really needy, really anxious, really clingy, and that's when then a lot of women clock out. So like, yeah, fuck that, I
Mm.
can't, like, I'm not gonna deal with this shit.
Hmm. That is interesting. I've never I never thought about it from that timeline, but there's some truth to that because yeah, like after like the honeymoon phase, like you said, is typically what 3 4 months, something like that, in the very very beginning, and then after around that time, it starts to wear off, and you start realizing, oh wow, there's a person that I'm actually talking to, and do I even like this person?
Mm,
Um, I know for me, when I had my relationship in 2022, that was pretty much our time frame. It was like after 7 months, I broke up with her, which again is kind of an anomaly because guys typically don't do the first breaking
Yeah.
up. That was the first time I've had to do that. And it was after that like 6 or 7 month period. And I remember thinking, yeah, there's just a lot of like incongruencies between me and her. We just didn't align on
Mm,
worldview and like specific viewpoints. And yeah, it was like after the honeymoon phase, I was like, damn, there's just not a lot of compatibility outside of
mm,
physically. There was compatibility, but mentally and emotionally, it just was kind of on different pages.
yeah.
Um, which again was my fault. Like I'm not gonna say like it's her fault that she's different, etc. I mean,
Mm,
I'll always put that on the guy. If you're dealing with a girl that isn't compatible, well, why did you let it get to that point? Like, did you vet her properly in the beginning? Do you know who you're dealing with? That's still on
mm,
the guy, I think, at the end of the day.
yeah. Man, would you also say, like, because you mentioned that you've done like you mentioned shadow work and a lot of work on yourself.
Hmm.
Wouldn't you also agree that the more inner work you do, the better you can become at, like making like seeing red flags early on?
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. 100%. Because when you do that work, a lot of that is just dealing with your own red flags, essentially. Like you're kind of dealing with your own stuff that would get in the way of a relationship or a long term thing. And when you can see that and notice it in yourself, it's easy to spot in someone else. Like if you had codependent tendencies at one point and you
Mm,
find a girl and she's codependent, you're like, oh, I'm getting familiar feelings again. Like you'll see it right away. So
mm,
yeah, I think the more that you do on yourself, the more work you do on yourself, um, red flags get easy to spot.
yeah. And again, I think that is another like, let's say, advantage of dealing with your own shit,
Yeah.
learning, dealing with your emotions, because like I think a lot of the guys who go into relationships, they think it's love, but it's actually like, what do they call it? Trauma bonds or whatever.
Yeah, trauma
And
bonds and yeah, just
yeah, and all
infatuation.
that goes away, right? And I think I've noticed that as well. Like the more work I did, like the less honeymoon periods I had. Like
Hmm.
it was more like the relationships were choices rather than
Yeah.
um, it happened. You know, we
Hmm.
we we fell in love. It's more like,
Yeah.
we like it. There's a compatibility and there's attraction. Let's give it a try rather than
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I'm so all over the moon.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting because that was definitely how I used to be when I started started seeing women on like more than like a one night basis basically. I'd like go and ask them out, we go on a couple dates, and then immediately I'd be like, holy shit, like I'd be so infatuated by them
Mm,
and I wanted to be with them every day, all day. And I'd text them and there'd be times where if I didn't get a text back, whole day was ruined. Like I wasn't focused,
mm,
I was miserable. And that's how you know it's a trauma bond because if your whole emotional center gets thrown off because of one little thing, that's not healthy. And I mean, I wasn't aware at the time. I thought this was like, holy shit, she's my soulmate, whatever. But now that I know what I know, it's like, yeah, that wasn't a healthy dynamic at all because it's so toxic. It's up and down consistently. Um, but yeah, most guys don't know that. Most guys think it's love or they think it's the soulmate thing. But a lot of times it's probably some kind of trauma that you're not sure of.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, I mean, I was like nodding along because I mean we've all been there,
Hmm.
like the that one girl doesn't text you back, and you're like, my gosh, like she's gonna break up with me, or maybe she's cheating on me. I don't know. Like, it's like maybe she
Hmm.
was actually just fucking busy, man. It's like,
Yep. Yep.
and you like the bad, like if you look at back at the early days, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna text her again, and question mark, like, hey, why you're not responding, and like,
Hmm.
I don't know, yeah, my grandma fucking died. I'm at the hospital. Sorry, and you're like, bro,
Hmm. Yep.
cringe. But yeah,
Hmm.
I hope a lot of guys will, because you mentioned earlier, like if you look at the content creators, a lot of influencers out there, especially red pill community, a lot of the guys who just say like, who refuse to acknowledge that a lot of the stuff that they're doing is actually like toxic. And I
Hmm.
hope that there's going to be a movement or a shift towards more the middle ground, like
Yep.
where men are like, I mean, I think for like guys in our age range, I think they're like they're starting to do the inner work.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the younger generation, um, the young men will start doing the inner work as well, much earlier than us and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
previous generations.
Mm-hmm. I see that happening myself. I think like there's always a pendulum, like we said earlier. There's always a pendulum that's swinging. So right now it's like because of feminism, because of all the weird like liberal stuff that's been happening, there has been that push for more, you could say red pill, just like masculine centric content. Um, that has been the thing where the pendulum is swinging because there's a need for that. Like we've forgotten what masculinity means or what men are supposed to be doing or how
Mm,
they show up, and that's why I think guys like Andrew Tate have become super popular because he was the one voice who was like, "Hey, this isn't right. This is what a man's supposed to be." And now he was a loud voice in that community, which is why he got a ton of like attention.
yeah.
Um, but even guys like him, even him, he's not the perfect man. Like he has a lot of flaws. There's a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with in terms of his message, but for the most part, yeah, like he was talking about traditional values of masculinity, like being a strong man, being a guy that's a protector, a provider. Like we can all relate to that, or we can all at least admit that that's what we want in a relationship. I think eventually what's going to happen, to your point, there's going to come a time where yes, those things are still important. Like we want traditional values, we want
Mm,
masculine and feminine dynamics to be normal and healthy, but it's going to get too essentially like talked about that there's going to be some bad apple that comes in and ruins it for everybody, and someone's going to have to pull that back to the middle. And I do think that that is guys like us, like not to be cocky, but like people that do the work, people that understand both
mm,
sides of the spectrum. I guess they call that purple pill, I don't know, but it's just dudes that are basically they're calibrated. That's essentially how I look at it.
mm. Purple pill. You know, they say purple is the color of sexual frustration, so I'm not sure I want to be part of that purple pill. You know?
That's what I mean. That's the internet. That's what they say. I don't really follow any of those
Yeah,
pill colors. I'm just like, yeah, either this makes sense or not, and I just follow the truth.
yeah, yeah. Following the truth, man. A rare thing nowadays.
Mm, that's true. Hell yeah. I'd love to get your thoughts on at least the space itself, on like kind of what's happening in the community, because I know you're aware of like the red pill, kind of what's happening over there. I've noticed there's another movement that's kind of almost a react. It's so funny because all these things are reactions to each other. Like that's a reaction to feminism.
Mm,
Feminism was a reaction to like the patriarchy or just dudes like getting overpowered. And now the reaction to a red pill is more religious type of content that seems to be making its way
mm,
into the space, which, like I was saying, I think is a good thing overall because guys are now finding more purpose. I guess they're finding more a sense of meaning and fulfillment because they have a connection to God
mm,
or a higher power or something like that. But just like the red pill, I see that potentially getting to the point where if it isn't this, then you're fucking burning in hell. And it's like
yeah.
that's not right, dude. Like you don't want to shame people. So I was curious, like your perspective on that. If you were like, at least if you're aware of that kind of happening, or just your opinion on guys getting into that type of
Yeah.
way of thinking, or anything.
I feel you, man. It's funny you say that. So yeah, it reminds me so much like you when you said like the shame part of Christianity. You know, it's like it sounds
Hmm.
like you have the Crusades and the jihads now, right? Like
Yeah.
almost like
Yeah.
it's like in terms of the extremism again.
Hmm.
But I'm not going to get into like any politics stuff right now. But
Hmm.
so I think for before I give my answer, I want to add a bit more context before like anyone wants to send me to hell. So I was raised by my grandma in a very religious way. So
Mm,
my grandma got divorced once, and because of that, she said I made a vow I'm not never gonna touch another man again. So that she stuck with
mm.
that for like 40, 30 years or something,
Wow.
which is crazy. But I mean, it was a way of not dealing with her own trauma. But I don't blame her
Mm,
because that's a different generation, right? Like,
mm-hmm,
so, but I was raised in a very Christian setting, which means every Sunday go to church, and it was essentially the mantras were like be like the her way of raising me up. We was very Christian, turned me into an absolute nice guy, and it was the extreme form of this,
mm,
and there was a lot of shaming. Right? When she saw
mm-hmm,
me with my first girlfriend, shame. How can you have sex before marriage? Like, blah
mm,
blah blah. All these small things, you know. And if we talk about spirituality, if we talk about there's a scale, it's called Hawkins scale, you know, and this it essentially is a scale that shows the frequency we operate in. You have the highest, which is love,
mm,
and then we have the lowest, which is shame. So now that we know that I have been raised in a Christian background, I have sort of broken free from that simply because you can believe in whatever God you believe in, like, right? Apparently, there are quite a few. And what essentially I don't like or dislike, the beef I have with Christianity or the church, not Christianity, the church is they want to share love or spread love, but they shame a lot.
mm-hmm.
And shaming is the lowest frequency we can operate in. And that shame is the frequency that essentially leads to depression. And I see it with a lot of guys who are in my groups, in my coaching. They have all come from very religious backgrounds,
Mm,
Christian, Orthodox, Muslim, and they all experience the same thing. They've been shamed to the ground, essentially.
mm,
And that's my problem with religion.
mm,
Again, we just use a different medium to go to the extreme. That's
mm-hmm.
sort of my take on it. Do I believe that it is good to have a purpose? And do I like? I think the good element of Christian or like religion is community and
Yeah.
purpose. But the very dark side effect that no one really talks about is the shame element. And I think I've talked for a very long
Mm,
time. So I hope that
mm,
makes sense for you, bro. And there was a lot of information I've read to you.
yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I actually do agree. I think that there's not to make this 100% about religion, but there is definitely a shift happening, I think, in this space, especially with talking about masculinity. There's definitely a shift happening with just the types of content that gets attention, and a lot of it seems to be more religious type content, specifically Christianity, because I think
Mm,
there's a lot of creators that I know and I'm actually cool with. I've had on my podcast before that they noticed a lack of masculinity in Christianity itself. So they're trying to like essentially um be more masculine in a space where guys have kind of like become the nice Christian guy who's very
mm,
humble and doesn't like have any balls essentially. So I respect that. I think that's dope. I think it's needed. But like you're saying, to throw shame into something or to judge someone because they have a slightly different perspective on it than you, I've never really been cool with that. I think that's the wrong, because you're not being authentic in that sense. You're being very close-minded because you're thinking if it's this way, this is how I read it in the Bible, this is how I read it in the book, it has to be this way. And
yeah.
again, you can have your faith but also be a free thinker. I don't think those things are mutually
Mm,
exclusive. Now again, I might be one of the very few people on the planet that think that way, but that's just how I process things in my mind. Um where was I going with that? Yeah, basically, I think it's a good thing. I think religion is a good thing to your point as well. But and then I think the overarching takeaway here is extremism in anything is negative. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's like things like religion, politics, things like communities, or anything that has like a cult like following, and you end up
mm,
doing things that you don't even consciously want to do, but you're doing them because you think that's the right thing to do because everyone else is doing it, or you read it in a script or something. That's extremism, and I'm against being fully extreme. The like balance is required in every aspect, spirituality, um, mentally, physically, emotionally, everything. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, fully agree. I fully agree, and I think this the the biggest beef, as I said, I have, and I'm glad you agree with that, is the shame element. It's like it
Hmm.
doesn't do anything good. It just
Yeah.
it puts you into the lowest vibration, and it is going to ruin a lot. It's going to, like, we've seen it in the last couple of years. Everyone's being like, a lot of men are being shamed,
Yeah.
and we see what it does, right? You withdraw
Hmm.
and you
Yep.
suppress who you are, and that is the worst thing that you can do, man.
Exactly.
Crazy. So
Yeah.
I think, man, the craziest story I had was, like, once I met this bro. It was gorgeous. Like, she was gorgeous, and like, she was Russian, and like, man, she was. I was like, when I saw her first, I was like, okay, I think this is the one, like, looks wise, and she was very, like, traditional. But
Hmm.
man, she was so traditional that she started to be pissed because I said fuck a lot, like, oh, like, fuck this. And I was like, she's like, oh, this is so, like, um you're going to hell. I'm like, bro, like, what do you mean I'm going to hell? Like, the fuck, and I mean, I clearly didn't work out,
Yeah.
that is like.
Yeah.
And this is again, like, I wanted to bring in this example because it's crazy, because this is the extreme that a lot of
Hmm.
the very conservative people in Christianity will go to, and
Hmm.
that is the dark side of religion.
Yep.
Don't want to bash religion here, but I think that was a
Hmm.
funny way of showing the extreme of how far it can go.
Hmm. Yeah, it's true. And like there's a dark side to everything. Uh and people need to realize that there's always a middle ground. There's always a you could say the world is gray and black and white, but I do believe that a lot of it is gray. Like, are there black and whites? Yes. Like, a man is a man, a woman is a woman. They can't just change it at any moment. That's pretty black and white. Even though the media will disagree with me, but that's a whole other conversation. There is a lot of gray though. There is a lot of gray to and nuance to things that like human behavior and and
Mhm.
and perspectives and things like that. So yeah, to wrap that up, I don't want to spend too much time talking about religion, but like I think it's important to talk about because a lot of people are saying to do more traditional things. And again, I'm pretty conservative myself. Like I believe in very traditional things
Mm.
in terms of a relationship. Like the man is the provider, the dominant one, the leader, all of that. And I'm sure you believe that too. Um, but in terms of like sex before marriage, that's my whole thing is my contention with that is you build intimacy through sex. Now, I'm not saying you should like fuck every single woman that walks the earth. You shouldn't be a person like that. But I do think that having sex with a woman or just making love to a woman, essentially, you're gonna connect with her deeper. And because that's how women are designed. We have chemicals that are released when you have sex with
Mm.
somebody, right? Like oxytocin, I think, is one of the hormones. It draws the other person to you more. So by you not doing that with your partner, you're essentially cutting off a form of intimacy that can actually make you guys closer. Now, their argument is
Mm.
like, well, you shouldn't do that before you're ready to commit because that clouds your judgment on this person. I'm like, I kind of understand that point a little bit, but you don't want to just wait forever to do that because like your your level of connection could be like stunted essentially if you don't. That's my take on it. I don't know.
100%. I agree. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, man. Um, to shift gears just a little bit and kind of talk about what we're bringing up about like the high quality woman thing and with guys understanding um what that even looks like because I know that that's even an interesting
Mm.
topic that guys talk about too is like what's a high value woman. I've heard guys say there is no such thing as a high value woman. I've even heard other takes where guys are like, the only thing that makes a girl high value is the guy that she's with, if he's high value. And some of that made sense, but then some of it's like, well, that's kind of like she's just a freaking mannequin essentially with no personality, and like she just molds to you, which a girl that loves you and admires you will do. But I think it's important to like identify, well, I like a girl with, maybe she meditates, maybe she goes to the gym more often, she's into holistic living, like having an idea of who you want to bring into your life as opposed to just being like, all right, well, whoever I'm with, that makes her high value.
Mm, yeah, 100%. So I think your question is like, what makes, what, by my definition, what is a high quality woman?
Yeah, I guess like my question would be, yeah, what do you think a high quality woman is? And do you think that is, well, essentially how do you think guys could attract more of that?
Mm, it's a great question. I think like, mm, I mean, I think my definition of high quality woman is I'm almost like a woman. I'm maybe a bit too picky nowadays, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I think my definition is stems a lot from internal, like her soul has to
Hmm.
be like spot on it, and it actually is going to make sense because there are a lot of physically attractive women out there who do not have like they don't have soul left,
Yep.
and it makes them very unattractive. And I think for a lot of guys listening, there's going to be a lot of women out there who are like maybe a seven, but their feminine energy, and the seven is fucking like, still good, you know, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but their feminine energy makes them so much more attractive.
Hmm.
So that's sort of
Yep.
overall. But like, if I look at specific traits, I think for me, a high quality woman is like someone who's ambitious, growth mindset, uh, holistic. You know, like into spiritual, like holistic spiritual self development. Obviously, believes into masculine, feminine dynamics,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean, obviously, fucking takes care of herself. You know, like
Right.
I mean, I don't want to go into like too many details, but those are sort of the generic ones for me.
Hmm.
And I want to make that comment. Like, if you look at all the girls that Tate surrounded himself with and the massive influences, Jake Paul, blah, 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 you know,
Hmm.
and they all look the same, you
Yeah.
know, they have fake boobies, fake nails, fake eyelashes, yada,
Hmm.
yada, yada. And they're supposed to be tens, but bro, like, they're not.
Yeah.
In
No.
my eyes, they're not a 10 because if they need so much external things popped on them in order
Hmm.
to be so good looking, they're not a 10, you know?
Yep.
And because they had to make up for a lack of. And
Mm.
for me, like but I'm also not saying you have to be a fucking virgin to be a 10, like, because that is for me also is a weird
Yeah.
obsession. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy, right?
Yep.
So for me, high quality women is essentially like someone who's, it doesn't have to be a housewife either for me. I'm actually find women attractive who want more than just being a housewife. Like, oh, I'm not saying that she can't be a housewife. I'm not saying that she shouldn't be interested in having children. But I want a, like, with Sandra, for instance, she's building her own online business, and I find that
Mm.
super attractive because I can help
Hmm.
her with that. We can talk. We have a lot of things that we can talk about together.
Yep.
Yada 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 yada. So
Mm.
high quality women. Yeah, man, I've completely fucking lost track of what I was actually saying in regard to what makes a high quality woman. But those
Yeah.
are some elements of that. And
Hmm.
I think coming back to your question, what do you need to do as a man to attract a high quality woman? I think it comes back to, I always say, like, I'm going to quote Jordan Peterson, which is become a dangerous gentleman. So
Hmm.
I don't want to dumb it down, but integrate your masculine energies like king, warrior, magician, lover. And I'd say lover and magician are the attraction side, seduction side. King and warrior are the masculinity side.
Hmm.
Once you integrate that, then you tick all the boxes.
Mm.
And it's not so much your looks. I think a lot of guys are average, not as gifted as I am by looks. I want to also, actually, I have to say it, but like, you can work your way up. You know, if you're an average guy, five, hit the gym.
Yeah.
Work, get your finances in order, um, work on your character, your emotions, emotional regulation, and bro, like quickly in 7 or 8, like
Mm-hmm.
there are 4 elements to attraction that like women are assessed by or judged by beauty mostly. We're not, which
Mm-hmm.
is quite good for us. It makes our life a
Yep.
bit easier, I think, actually.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I love how you broke that down because, yeah, guys, as important as it is to be physically attracted to your partner, because there is a study that I think that came out recently that said women do actually value that more than guys think. But at the same time, they don't value it as much as men do because we're men are we're the visual ones. Like we want the thing to look at. Uh, Not that women don't. It's just not as much as us. So yeah, like you have to work on other areas like your ambition, your ability to protect her. You know, having a physical prowess to you, having a presence,
Mm,
and just being a leader, like knowing how to communicate, knowing how to handle stress, knowing how to take care of difficult situations. All that stuff matters, I think, a little bit more than the looks, just looks by themselves. Um,
100%.
but I like what you said about the high quality woman because that is something that I agree. There's a very like descriptive stigma of what that looks like. Most guys think it's a virgin woman cleaning and cooking at the house, wearing like 50s clothing. It's like I understand that. I understand that idea. And part of it I do agree with part of it. Like I want a girl that can cook, I want a girl that can clean, I want a girl that's feminine and does those things, but at the same time, I like ambition in a girl. Like I like a girl that like knows what she wants, a girl that wants more than just, you know, working at McDonald's. Like she wants something for her life. For me, I'd love a girl that gets involved in my business. Like I'd love for my girlfriend to work for me, to be honest. Help me film, like be in videos with me, do things like that. Like that would be incredible. At least for my lifestyle. But yeah, as far as the virgin thing, like again, if you're a virgin, then yeah, you probably want that. But if you're not a virgin and you realize that you want a girl who's still traditional, she doesn't have to be like Kim Kardashian level of body count, but she's on the lower side. I think they say less than 10 or something is like pretty ideal. Like I think I said if you're above 10 in a woman or a guy, that typically like marriages end earlier or something like that. Like they say that like
mm,
if you hit above a certain number, they just say that correlates with like less long-term relationships. So yeah, obviously a girl that has a lower I guess body count would be ideal, but I think that all depends on the person. All depends on the guy. Uh if you want a girl that's, she got like oven mitts on constantly and she's got dresses and she's cooking at the house and she never leaves your house and she's always there, cool, that's fine. But that doesn't mean that every girl that isn't like that is uh, a girl that's for the streets or she's
yeah.
trash, like, or she's a boss babe, because a girl that's ambitious doesn't just mean she's hyper independent. Like there's a difference. So yeah, I think it does depend on um knowing yourself, being a guy that has experience too. Because if you don't have a lot of experience, you hear something like, yeah, let her stay at the house and she never leaves and she cooks and cleans all day. That sounds amazing because you don't even know what's out there because you've never really seen or talked to women like that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like, I don't understand. I think there is this. I don't know if it's insecurity from guys,
Mm-hmm.
but like I think some of the most attractive women I've dated were actually like career women. Like in
Mm-hmm.
finance, um, strategy, consultancies.
Yeah.
Because and I found them really attractive because they have a lot of drive for life.
Mm-hmm.
And but they were also I don't want to say willing, but they were also ready to submit, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
because they were like so fed up with being in their masculine energy throughout the day. They were like,
Exactly.
yeah, I want to be with a guy who is masculine enough in order to help me, empower me into my feminine.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't
Yep.
mean that they wanted to become housewives, you know.
Yeah.
And I absolutely, I find that way more attractive than a girl who says, "Well, I just want to cook and clean." It's like, I think that there's a bit more to life, you know. I mean, even if you were
Mm-hmm.
to cook and clean naked all day long, I'm not sure. Like, I want a bit more than that, you know. But it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to, I think, because you and I were doing the inner work, it raises our standards as well, you know.
Definitely.
And man, there's one more thing actually I wanted to add to what makes a high quality woman a woman, a high quality woman, is, you know, like it sounds super weird, but if she would tell me I've been to therapy, I would actually say, you know what, that's a green flag, because
Yeah,
it
definitely.
means you faced your inner shit, because we all
Mm-hmm.
have some inner shit.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
if you're with a, like, especially my age range around the 30s, right? A girl who says like, I've never been to therapy, I'm like, okay, there's going to be a lot of a rabbit hole that we're going to enter, and there's going to be a lot of shit that's going to come up. So I'd rather have a
Mm-hmm.
girl who says, you know what, I've been to therapy because I've become aware of shit and I wanted to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. To that point, so I have something similar. I wrote out a whole list, and this is what I always tell guys to do: is like make a list,
Mm.
literally, like write out every single quality that you want. So it might be some of the things that we just said, that we just talked about, but get specific. Like a girl that she knows how to cook or wants to learn how to cook, a girl that is ambitious, maybe she's hardworking, a girl that is brunette, blonde, whatever. Like just get very specific with every detail. One of the things I have in there is a girl that's into self improvement, self growth. Now, that doesn't
Mm.
mean she's like trying to be a millionaire or anything. That simply just means she wants to work on her emotions. She wants to work on her mindset, like the way that she views life and just success. As far as the therapy thing, yeah, that is a good thing, because if she's going to therapy, that means she understands that there's work to do. Now,
Mm.
that does depend on the therapist and the type of therapy, because some
Yeah.
some therapy is just like you're not getting shit accomplished. You're just talking for 60 minutes and they're prescribing you freaking pills.
Yeah.
So that isn't good. But as if it's like legitimate work and she understands uh, consciously what's happening, like she's improving her consciousness, that's a little bit different, and that's what I would value as well. um so yeah, it's I think it's understanding the target that you want to hit, as far as like the ideal woman. Like, what is that? Like, get clear with what that is, identify it, and then become the guy that would attract that person. Because the second step is always, well, am I even good enough to bring that girl into my life? Like, if you have a whole list and you have all these things written down and all these green flags, all these red flags, look at that list and then look at yourself. Can I actually attract this person yet? Or do I have some
Mm.
work to do? It's like, most guys can sit here and say they want a high quality woman, they want this, they want that. Are you a high quality guy yet? Like, can you actually get that woman interested in you? That's a that's a whole other, that's a whole other thing that they got to do. Is that's why self improvement is always the first thing.
Yeah. And you know what, like, I think we you said something great, which is, amongst all the things that you said that which were great, one stood out right now, which was, the we say a lot of, I think subconsciously we call it high quality man.
Hmm.
And I think there's a difference between high value and high quality. And a lot
Yeah.
of guys think they have to become high value, which is just assets,
Yeah.
money, looks, and I don't know, fast cars and this shit.
Hmm.
But actually, what makes the difference is a high quality man, which is like relative value, which is character, right?
Yeah.
So you have to, ideally you want to have relative, like, high quality and high value.
Yep.
That is,
Definitely.
or like, yeah, assets and character. That makes you essentially a high quality man, and that's what high quality women are after.
Hmm. Facts. I want to write that down. That's a good video idea. Like high value versus high quality. I never thought of it like that. That's a good
Yeah, it's
idea.
yeah, like, it's a crazy distinction, because and it proves the point. Like, again, coming back to Tate, right?
Mm-hmm.
or like I don't know some of the influences. If you look at Jake Paul, bro is
Yeah.
or whatever. I don't fucking know who it is, but one of them has this super slut, right, as a
Yeah.
wife. Like this guy is high value on
Mm-hmm.
like he ticks all the boxes in terms of assets, but yeah, definitely not the quality guy, right?
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah, because when we think of high value, I think we typically just imagine a guy with money or a guy with status, and we think of a dude who's just like very powerful. Which, yeah, that's going to attract women. Clearly, like women like status in a man; they like power. But if you're a shit person, don't be surprised if all you attract are like porn stars and OnlyFans models and celebrities that have no substance, because that's all they're going to be attracted to is the power. Because if you're lacking character and integrity and honesty, loyalty, commitment, if you lack those internal things, well, yeah, like you're probably not going to attract a girl with those qualities either.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Hell yeah. That, I mean, we pretty much talked about everything. I mean, in terms of relationships, uh, self work, inner work, religion, politics. Kind of got into a bit of everything, man. But I think this was uh, a really dense podcast. Like if guys go back through this and really filter through everything we're talking about and take notes, there's a lot here that I think can help guys out and just navigate their lives and as they become better men and attract quality women in their lives. I think by listening to this and really taking it seriously, I mean, I don't think this is like the only thing that they'll ever need to watch, but this is definitely like a good starting place for dudes.
100%. I would start with this if you want to change your
Yeah,
life.
100%. 100%. Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on and having the discussion. I think we always have pretty solid conversations. Um, if people wanted to follow up with you and kind of get more into your work and your page, where can people find you?
First, thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah,
Really enjoyed it.
of course.
And yeah, where can I find me? I mean, I can like my Insta page is Jean Gerien, but good luck with spelling that, right? So I always say that. So yeah, I'm not sure if you want to put it down in somewhere in the description or something,
Hmm.
but yeah, Jean Gerien, essentially my name.
Yep.
That's where you can find me.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll put it down below. If you want to look more into gene stuff, don't worry, the spelling will be taken care of. You don't have to worry about that. um, you know where my stuff is too, down in the description. You know where my pages are. If you want to work with me personally, I have coaching available, and I have my consultations calls down below if you want to book one. And we'll basically talk about everything we talked about today, except in more detail. And obviously, it's focused on you and what you need. So if you want more clarity around that, hit that link. And that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and let me know what you want to see addressed on future podcasts and what topics you want to see me come to these guests with. Because I think it's always interesting to just pick people's brains and you know get different perspectives out there. But yeah, man, thanks for hopping on, Gene. I'd love to have you on a future episode and appreciate the back and forth, man.
Sure, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a
Of
pleasure as
course.
always.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. We're gonna get going. Peace out. Catch you in the next one.
Love and peace. Ciao, ciao.